Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights. I'm here at the March edition at PDAC of the Metals Investment Forum, and with me is the Chief Operating Officer of Liberty Gold, Jon Gilligan. Jon?
Joe, pleased to meet you again.
We talked back in January in Vancouver about Black Pine and a little bit about Antimony Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, and on terms of Black Pine, you've began the permitting process for the project based on the pre-feasibility study. So can we go into a bit of the detail about how that permitting process works and the timeline and things like that?
Of course. So the pre-feasibility study on Black Pine that we published in October, technical report in November, is a sort of start document. You take that document and you reformat it and create what's called a mine plan of operations. We sort of gave an advance copy to the federal agencies early January, in fact, before the conference.
And this is the U.S. Forestry Service.
This is the U.S. Forest.
And the BLM.
That's correct. They are both they're both leads. The deposit is on the forest ground, and the Heap leach, the infrastructure, is on the BLM ground. So we gave them an advance copy in January, and we've been in a kind of 6-week sort of tic-tac process. We finalized that late last week, and so 2 days ago, we formally published the draft mine plan of operations. And that's the document that describes what are you going to do in terms of the mine plan, where are the pits going to go, how many people, what sort of consumption of reagents, and it really defines the whole impact of that project. And it's the start of that formal US federal permitting under what's called NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. So that's the first step. The next step in the process is that document's reviewed and it's deemed administratively complete and then technically complete. Technical completion is something like 6 to 9 months.
From your submission?
From the submission. Yeah. So we expect technical completion in the third quarter. At that point, the document then is sent to Washington and it receives a federal registry number. That's called a notice of intent.
Right.
At that point, the regulations say 24 months from the notice of intent to the draft decision notice.
Right.
So a formal, and in that 22 months, you write the environmental impact statement. You have a lot of consulting of communities.
But there's a timeline.
Yeah, there's a 24-month timeline. And with the draft decision, then there is an administrative review period of the draft decision, and the final decision is issued within 90 days of that draft decision. And at that point, from an environmental point of view, from a federal process, you're good to go.
Okay.
At the same time as doing that process, there's a state process for all the ancillary permits, and that comes along in parallel. And the idea is that you have all those approved by the state at the same time as you get the final.
So you can get going once you got the other.
So we expect that final permit late 27, early 28. And with that, we would have made a construction decision based on the draft approval, assuming that it would be final. And then in our case, we would expect construction to start in March 28.
So in terms of, this was based on a pre-feasibility study.
Correct.
So the impacts from the pre-feasibility study to the feasibility study, which you're working on, are not going to be significant, I guess.
Yeah, so you don't want to change whatever you've put in that mine plan of operations. You don't want to change that going through the process. Obviously, as you rightly say, we're going to learn going through feasibility. We're going to do some more drilling. We'll learn some more about the deposit. We'll probably have an opportunity to confirm or change the production rate. That information, what happens is the mine plan gets approved, and that becomes your sort of starting approval. Whatever you learn during feasibility, you kind of roll that into a supplemental application for a new permit, and then that happens in the first few years of production.
Okay. So you could get going in 2028 and then submit for modification.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And this is all about, I'm thinking of it, where you're trying to grow the production profile after, was it year 8, year 9?
That's correct. Right. Yeah.
That would
infill. Well, in that particular case, if the pits that we float in feasibility are essentially the same disturbance area as the pits in pre-feas, and we've just discovered some more mineralization inside that pit, that's not a significant change. So you wouldn't have to put a permit application. But if we found, for example, a step out and the side and the back slope of the pit went out 500 meters for the sake of the conversation, that would be a significant disturbance and you'd have to reapply for permits.
Well, this was an operating mine. So is there an advantage with having an operating mine in terms of permitting something at this stage?
So kind of yes and no is the confusing answer. Yes, it's an advantage in the fact that the site is previously disturbed. So when you look at the from a visual point of view, there are back slopes there are waste dumps. It's an old mine site, so you're not disturbing pristine views, right, which is a big issue in the US. So you get a sort of an advantage for that. The fact that we're doing the same mining technique with the same processing technique that's already been permitted sort of doesn't get you approved, but people realize, hey, we already said we could do this, so you guys should be fine. Right. You have to go through the process. However, because it's a fully rehabilitated site, technically it's deemed to be virgin, original land, and you have to go through the entire process.
Right. And the other thing that we were talking about, like we see the mine, the pits and stuff like that, but we also see the heap leach pad.
Yes.
So two questions on that. One is we've had some of these mines have stability issues with their pads. Mm-hmm. We could talk about that because this pad has just stayed as it has been.
Yes, it has.
For decades now. And then also with respect to the potential of actually re-leaching that, because there may still be gold in that heap leach pad. So maybe take the first question first.
Yeah. So there's the 30 million ton heap that's obviously was the original ore that they produced. It's been rehabilitated, so it's on plastic, it's been covered over, and it's administered by the forest. We applied for a permit to do resource drilling on that heap. We have the permit, and we intend to do that drilling in probably in May this year. Okay. We expect to find somewhere between 25 and 75,000 ounces extractable from that material, but we have to do the drilling and the test work. We would like to get that declared as a mineral resource and then into the feasibility study as part of the production schedule. And once we've drilled it and we know what it is, I think the logical way to treat that, we probably would not re-leach it, because the design of the liner, it was designed and approved under the old set of regs, and today that design would not be approved. So to go in and re-leach on an unapproved design, you'd have a tough time getting that done. So most likely we will excavate that heap and we will put it through a crusher and we'll use it as the base liner for the new heap. Oh,
okay.
And that way...
But it will have gold in it.
It will have gold in it, and that will come out with the system. And that way, two things. One, you have to put a liner in anyway, so we've now got gold in that liner, so that's a positive. And secondly, we are completely cleaning up an environmental legacy issue that the forest, I think, would love us to do. So there's a
right now that's not in what you've submitted.
No, not yet, because we don't have it in resource. So we can't mine.
But would you use it anyway? Even if it had, I mean, is there a cutoff grade that makes sense, or do you just use it anyway?
Look, I think from our point of view, as long as it either broke even or was less than the cost of digging something else, then yes, we would use it. And I think obviously there's a benefit to everyone for doing that.
Okay.
So yes.
So if we go to the SpinCo, because we have Black Pine, which is moving along, and now the company's idea is to leave Black Pine on its own and then spin out this thing called Gold Strike, which was its own open pit heap leach, but was on sort of standby as you were trying to figure out the water for the project. But in the interim, with the ban on antimony that's been around for a couple of years on the US, but now globally, antimony's taken on a different sort of perspective, and you've got this high-grade antimony. So what are you doing with that project now?
So as you rightly say, we know quite a lot about the gold mineralization. I think we've got a nice little asset there. We have to work through with the district water authorities to get a water supply. We'll need to do water exploration. So we're in a process of working through that with them. Meanwhile, last year, as you say, with the sort of refocus on antimony and critical minerals and the need for the US military, we went back into the field. First round of field work, we found this massive high-grade on-surface antimony mineralization and went, gee, that's interesting. So first round, second round, and now the third round of field work has sort of started to open up our eyes to the fact that we're sitting on a mineral structure, which is a silicified breccia. It's got more than, on surface, 2 kilometers of strike length. In soils, we could see up to 5 kilometers, so 2 plus now 3 in the soils of antimony anomaly in soils, which is linear, which indicates that that breccia's buried. And we did a bit of metallurgical test work with a couple of samples and got a very nice 50% antimony con with a 70% recovery. All of that suggests to us this has a very good hallmark of being a viable antimony operation. Needs a lot more exploration. We don't have down dip drilling, so we need to drill it. And we decided that that doesn't really fit with an oxide gold deposit of black pine. So logically, we said, okay, we'll split the companies. Liberty will be the corporate vehicle to look at oxide gold products in the US and develop black pine, and sort of Gold Strike, or NewCo, will essentially be a US critical minerals vehicle on the basis of and it will then raise funds. It'll explore and develop that antimony and antimony ridge. The gold mineralization at Gold Strike is a sort of insurance policy, if you want to think of it, in that new company. And we are also working through other opportunities in and around the US, which are coming up. Sort of everyone's now got some antimony on their property. So we're going through and looking at antimony and some other metals to see, is there a logical acquisition that we can put in with this then to give it critical mass? And I think, watch this space. We're confident that something will happen on that.
Is some of the management going to be working on both? Or?
Yeah, we're working through the final details. So we're doing what's called a plan of arrangement, which describes, the share splits. We need to build a board of directors. We have to build a management team. There will be people coming out of Liberty to go into NewCo, and there'll be some shared services between Liberty and NewCo. We'll probably have some cross-holding of directorship, but it will be an independent company. But Liberty will have some residual ownership in NewCo. So, it'll be separate but sort of aligned. We have to go to a shareholder vote to confirm that, and we would see that shareholder vote being sort of late in the second quarter. And then by the third quarter, NewCo, I think, will form and will then go and do its thing.
Okay, so quickly, in terms of catalysts coming forward, SpinCo, and then what's happening at Black Pine, what should we expect for the rest of 2024?
So really briefly, I think we have to start drilling at Black Pine. That's scheduled for the second quarter. That gets us through to a feasibility resource number in the model in the fourth quarter, and some engineering. So look for results, look for the start of that drilling results, and then ultimately...
That's 20,000 meters?
20,000. Actually, probably 20 to 30, I think. Okay. And so look for Q4 feasibility resource. That kicks off full feasibility. We'll have metallurgical test work in that process, which we'll publish probably in Q3. And then Q3... we also look for the notice of intent, which is that permitting stream where we take the mine plan of operations and formally register it. And at that point, we're 2 years from a decision.
Right. That's when you get the timeline.
That's when you get the timeline.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jon.
Pleasure. Nice to catch up. Thank you,
Jon, COO of Liberty Gold. A number of catalysts for 2024 between Black Pine and now Antimony Ridge in the Gold Strike property. That's it for me, Joe Mazumdar from Exploration Insights at the PDAC edition of the Metals Investment Forum in Toronto. Thank you for watching.